What's up, y'all? It's Shuffle, and this is a check-in video with Obsidian Prince, which is actually a game I liked quite a bit that I checked out a few months ago. This is not hashtag ad, no one's paying me to promote this game. I just wanted to come back to it and talk about it since it's gotten some updates. So before we get started with the video, if you enjoy it, give it a thumbs up, leave your thoughts down below in the comments, check out the description box for all the helpful links, and I'll make sure to link the playlist for the first videos I did on Obsidian Prince. Just to recap, Obsidian Prince is a roguelike deck building game where you get to move around on a grid type of pattern and do all this tactical cool stuff with cool abilities, coupled with a lot of funny writing and cute graphics. Your characters actually consist of two decks. You have your inspiration deck, which is all of your abilities in battle. Then you have your backstory deck, where you get to only pick 3 of these per fight out of 5, but you get more than 5 in your entire deck. And that is what you get as bonuses for that encounter. Adding to these 2 decks of cards require you to find secrets, or win battles, or complete quests and stuff like that, or get talents. That's a good way to get a bunch of inspiration cards too. But all these add to your deck, and you can get potions to remove things from your inspiration deck, or duplicate some, and then for your backstory deck, you can only have a set amount, so once you start getting more than you have in terms of the cap, you get to replace the ones you don't want anymore. So the big reason that I was alluding to before as to why I came back to work on a video for this game is because they had a huge update recently, and they called it Chapter 2, and they've had a bunch of little updates in the middle to add more stuff to the game over time. Chapter 2 specifically did add quite a few things. They added classes such as the Beesmaster, the Grave Jester, the Mold Druid finally came to the base game, as well as a bunch of little quests and an event called the Coliseum, or I guess location. These are the things I will be trying to cover specifically because honestly there has been so much content added since I last played at least the campaign of it, not the roguelike mode, that it's too much to like fit into one video. There's just so many extra dungeons, so many extra quests and encounters and stuff like that, and I've been playing it for hours. The first character we're going to talk about is the Beesmaster. This is the prestige class of Ranger, which means it's like the Ranger but a bit upgraded or side graded if you know your tabletops where prestige classes are a thing. And out of the classes that I played that I didn't really have a lot of experience with, I think the Beesmaster is my current favorite. It feels very powerful, but also I think it's because the fact that the Grave Jester and the Beesmaster both get pets, and pets are very strong just because of action economy and they don't take damage and stuff like that. So I think that with that in mind, the Beesmaster is pretty powerful, coupled with other things like its backstory choices, as well as its reach. The default gear for the Beesmaster is a spear that goes in your slot 3, and then you have a dog which goes in your slot 4. The dog is just an ability that lets you summon a dog. The dog sticks around for a set number of turns, it can make a set number of attacks, but you can augment this through your inspiration cards. And the spear, from what I've seen, has a lot of interesting inspiration cards that augment the reach, give a little more damage or whatever, and it's a movement type of thing if you want to close the gap. Otherwise, the first 2 skills on the Beesmaster are identical to the Ranger. Instead of a crow, you get a pretty much just killer bee that you can throw at people. Then you get Hunter's Mark, which I believe functions the exact same. For those of you who don't know, the way it does function is it temporarily immobilizes the target and increases the damage they receive. So as I was saying, the reason I feel the Beesmaster is the strongest out of the new things that I played is because you can summon the dog. The dog sticks around for quite a while. The dog gets access to being able to pull enemies to it, which can sometimes either pull them to you, which can be dangerous, or it can help you. You can also pull them away from you sometimes. It has the ability to do AoE with an inspiration card, so it can hit everything around it for half damage. And then you can keep giving it extra attacks, so it just stays on the field by using a card called Fetch. So every time Fetch comes out, the dog automatically gets 2 extra attacks, which increases its longevity. The strongest part about pets, like the dog, and there are other ones, like you can get a backstory for a bee queen, which just summons a literal bee queen to help you out and shoots things. Same with the Grave Jester and the ghosts and the shades and the zombies and all that. The reason pets are very powerful is because they don't die normally. They don't have health bars, the enemies don't target them, they last a set number of turns, they do damage, they can also obstruct the enemies, which can be very helpful. And since they don't die from damage, they can just clog up the field and just get you free turns. So while you're running away or trying to get to better positions or trying to single out certain enemies, they can serve as roadblocks and help slow things down, but also do damage while you're trying to move. My favorite backstory card for the Beesmaster is the Swarm of Bees. This is a backstory where it just puts one small swarm of bees into the fight that you're currently in. This swarm of bees only does like 2 or 3 damage or something, but every time it kills something, it gains bonus damage and then it replicates, so there are more swarms, which means that there are a lot of fights in this game where the enemy can just spawn extra units or just a bunch of just, you know, trash, for lack of a better word. So like it'll summon, you know, rats that have 4 HP or drop bones that turn into skeletons. All of these things are essentially fodder for your bee swarms. So as long as they can keep cleaning up the generic weak minions, they can keep replicating. And I got to the point where when I had swarm of bees in certain fights, especially against like the necromancer faction, I would just have literally like 6 or 7 swarms that would just start clearing out the entire fight, and I didn't have to do anything. So it was pretty fun. And also, if you're doing this in the campaign, you can use this in the resource rooms or the treasure rooms. So the things that spawn gold and treasure chests and stuff, the bees can destroy those, which gets you the loot, but then they also replicate. So if you're doing those types of rooms, the swarm of bees ramp incredibly fast and do very well. The bees themselves may fall off a bit later in the game when things get more HP just baseline, but for the early to mid game, they've seemed very powerful. The next class was also very fun. This was Grave Jester. It is a pet type of class, but it's got some really interesting control elements, and I feel like it's the hardest class that I've played so far, and that's, you know, that's saying something because the classes do have some complexity to them, but Grave Jester felt pretty difficult but also powerful once it got rolling. But Grave Jester is another class that focuses on doing zone control, so like it puts down the gravestone that can block the way for enemies to get past you, and then it summons ghosts and potentially zombies with other cards, which means that you have just a literal undead army just flooding the battle or the arena, whatever you want to call it. And they can help you maneuver, they can protect you. Sometimes enemies can't move past them or shoot past them, which is really nice. And they're constantly doing damage. Grave Jester also gets a unique mechanic where it can get like soul fragments or just entire souls, I forget exactly which it is. And you can turn these in, they're basically tokens while you're fighting. You can turn these in to make other things, like you can create duplicates of yourself and other effects. The next feature we're going to talk about is the Coliseum. This is actually pretty difficult. I tried it a few times and I have not beaten it, but from what I'm seeing is you just get this nice open space with a few pillars and literally a couple dozen enemies of the specified type that you have to fight. I tried it a few times with my Beastmaster because that was my best character on the file, but I think something like the Warrior with maybe a round strike build could also do pretty well. But like I said, I only tried it a few times and I didn't get very far. So because of that, I can't tell you what the rewards are, but what I do like is that there is a variety of content. You have your normal dungeon layouts and your bosses and stuff like that, and then you just get this massive horde battle, which is pretty cool. The last thing I'll talk about is the Mold Druid. I actually don't have any footage of the character. I played it in an earlier version and I lost that file, but it is available now in the campaign. The Mold Druid plays like a character that really wants to control the entire field. They spread mold like all over the place and they can do stuff with it like make it poisonous or teleport through it. So it's a really interesting character. It's a little bit hard just because you have to think more about your spatial situations, so like the actual floor. But if you're into that kind of playstyle, because it is definitely different compared to the other characters, then you should give it a shot. Alright y'all, that's gonna do it for this one. And like I said before, Obsidian Prince is a game I like a lot. I played it almost more than any other game that I play off stream that I've covered, besides, you know, the obvious ones that I cover normally. So if you like what I've kind of given in detail here, and then you've seen my older videos on it, then you should pick it up. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.